Greetings, YouTube. I recently watched a video here on YouTube that dealt with drawing a sword off your shoulder. Now, the person was making the reference because of the classic ninja scene, where you have a ninja with a katana strapped to his back, and the ninja is sneaking around, and the ninja draws the katana off his shoulder, and then, goes into battle. And if you are a ninja, which just means an athletic type that needs to crawl around and climb a great deal, a sword on your back is probably the best place to put it if you're going to carry a sword. You put it to your side, it's going to get in the way. It's going to get caught on everything. On your back, at least you have a chance of being able to move from point A to point B and up that wall without it banging on something or stopping your progress. Someone else in that comment section of that video made a reference to the classic ninjato, which is a sword which we're not 100% sure ever actually existed. So making that as a reference point may be invalid. But I made a comment and I never got a reply. I don't know if the individual had ever read it or simply thought it was not worthy of a reply. But it wouldn't, to my mind, be an incredible stretch of the imagination that if you were going to be going into a situation where you have to climb and crawl and be sneaky and you want to wear a sword on your back, that you would wear a sword on your back that's shorter than a katana. Now, a katana can have a pretty long blade. Now, my friend Skull has one which is a little shorter than the standard. It was a really nice model. I've got to figure out find out from him what the actual model was, because I had a chance to hold it once, and it was really nice. It was a little bit shorter than the standard length, which I appreciate because I don't have particularly long arms. My arms are actually slightly short for my torso. It makes finding shirts a pain in the butt. And I'm not even sure you could draw that off your back, even though it was shorter than a standard katana, because again, you have a less mobility in this way than you do when you're drawing like that, okay? However, I can draw a gladius off my back without any problem. I know. I own one. I tried it. It cleared the sheath in one smooth motion. So if you're going to carry a sword into combat, you're going to have, and when you want to strap it to your back, you're going to carry a sword which is shorter than standard. And a gladius is still a sword. And when you need to go into combat, it beats having nothing but a knife. Swords beat knives under most circumstances. Because, yes, swords can actually be used in close combat. It's just a little more difficult. Not impossible, but a little more difficult. There's an old saying which is, stab with the edge, slash with the tip. The point being that you use the weapon in any way you can. If you have close combat and you can't make a slicing, you just shove it into someone's face. It works. It distracts them. But it got me thinking, how many of the tropes do we see in films or role-playing games, and people are like, oh, that's silly, but they actually haven't tried it? Have you tried it? Or things that we think are acceptable, but actually are silly. For example, trying to draw a katana off your back is silly. Or, one of my favorite, the dire flail from the OGL, which I think is absurd to the point where I built one. I still have to film a video about that. So I'm asking people out there, are there tropes that you have encountered in games or movies and you thought were silly, or you thought that they were sensible, but in neither case did you actually try it? Now, admittedly, there are some things you can't try, that the attempts of trying them would very likely get you killed. Or that they're beyond the physical capability of most people because it requires a great deal of training. I'm not asking anyone to endanger themselves. But there are people in the world who do have, in fact, lots and lots of training. So we could probably ask them to try it. Sort of a Mythbusters kind of thing, but for more of the movie or fantasy role-playing or science fiction tropes that are out there in the world. So I personally think that if you're going to strap a sword to your back, you're going to pick one which is of a length that matches your arm length for the purposes of drawing a sword off your back. that a person trained in the use of a sword is not going to pick a weapon that they cannot draw off their back. I did actually play a character, Morgan Twinblade. I know, not a particularly original name. Give me a break. It was first edition. I was early in my gaming career. Who I believe was a fighter, thief, human, dual class, and he used 2 short swords. But this is back in the day before there were proper twin dual weapon rules, and he wore them off his back. But they were short swords. I recognize that you cannot, even then, that you cannot draw a broadsword or a longsword off your back. You need a shorter weapon. It also fit his particular design style, because I portrayed him as a stocky, powerfully built individual. He didn't want to wield large blades. He was all about short blades, fast attacks, things like that. So I asked my community out there, what are the tropes, whether they're in films or fantasy or science fiction games or what have you, that you would like to see tested to see, are they silly or do they actually work?